Hey Internet, this is Chaz.
This is Dan. Welcome to Wine is Serious Business. Today we're out at Kramer Vineyards with Kim Kramer here. Excited to have another guest on the show. Those of you saying you wish we had more female guests, this is the perfect guest where we get a winemaker and a female at the same time, 2 for 1. Kim's been second generation winemaker out here. Has been making some really interesting wines, really enjoyable stuff that we've been introduced to just over the past year or so. So we've been trying to get out here to do an interview for a while. Happy to make that happen. Why don't you talk a little bit about what you like to do with the winery here and what inspires you with winemaking?
Wow, quite an introduction.
Yeah.
Well, so I've been the winemaker here since the 2008 vintage, and our focus is making wines that really represent our vineyard here in the Carleton district. We do Pinot Noir, sparkling wines, Chardonnay, Pinot Gris, and then a little bit of Müller-Thurgau. And so the estate is really the focus, and that's what gets me excited, is learning more about our site every single year that I'm here.
And you've been around here your whole life too, right? Your parents have been making wine since you were pretty young.
Yeah. No, they made wine before I was born. They started in the early 70s. They bought this property in '83. I was 5 years old, do the math. And so yeah, I grew up here and grew up in Oregon wine culture. So.
Awesome. The first wine we're going to try today is like a long time standard of theirs, the Brut. You've been making sparkling wine here the whole time, pretty much?
Yeah, I started making this wine in 2006 commercially. Started making it in 2008. My folks' sparkling wine program goes back to 2001. They did a sparkling version of the Müller-Thurgau.
Yeah.
Is the Brut brand new under you?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah, that's
okay.
something that I brought to the table. I worked at a winery before this that did wine of this style, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the wine. I fell in love with the craft, and was really excited to be able to make some from our estate vineyard here.
And for those who haven't had a chance to come out, they're out in the hills of Carleton. So they're a little higher elevation vineyard. So things are a little cooler here, and you know that lends itself well to producing sparkling wine too. Right?
Yeah, nice bright acidity in the wines. This is a blend 50-50 Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. Pretty screaming acid in this, which I'm really happy about. This is the highest acid sparkling wine that we've done yet. So. And this is a vintage one too, and you have non-vintage sparkling wine as well? We do. It's all vintage, but for packaging purposes, sometimes we'll label it non-vintage.
Okay, so this is the 2010 Kramer Brut. Really nice apple flavors on the nose, both fresh and a little bit of baked apple as well too.
Yes, they just touch like sweet apple flavors. Smells super pleasant. A little bit chalky too, just a little bit of mineral in it. Yeah. Smells really pleasant. Texturally really nice. Right. Like it's, go ahead.
Yeah, when we were pre-tasting these, I think that struck both of us. Both the bubbles and the mouthfeel of the wine are really nice. There's like this light sense of richness to it early on, but the acidity that she was talking about really comes through pretty quickly on the mid palate and keeps things crisp in a way that I like.
Totally, like starts off sort of sweet apples and sweet pears, and then that acidity kind of creeps in and just overwhelms everything, keeps things really clean. Like there's just a little touch of sweetness to this that I think balances really well with like the bubbles and the acidity. It's just perfect. Very nice.
Thank you. For me, this wine is very successful. It's got I'm really happy with the texture of the bubbles and with the cleanness in the finish and the fruit expression. So it's really everything that I hoped it could be.
Yeah, awesome. I've had your guys' non-vintage Brut a bunch of times and really enjoyed it. But I think the couple times I've had the vintage Brut, been really enjoying it. So awesome stuff.
Thank you.
Just a good sense of clarity to it. This is really enjoyable. And what's the price point on this?
This one's $24.
All right. Wow. And that's great.
And I think that one of the reasons why this has that clarity on the palate is because it's single vineyard and vintage dated. So it represents both the place where the grapes were grown and the time in which it was made. So
cool. And pretty labor-intensive process too, right? So that's part of the reason that a lot of sparkling wine is more expensive. And you do method champenois too, right?
We do.
Secondary fermentation of the bottle, so yeah.
We do, and then when you're making, so we produced 160 cases of this wine. When you're making a sparkling wine at that low production, you're really doing everything by hand. And so I think that if we weren't happy with the wine and didn't find some joy in the winemaking, that we would have given up on this project long ago, because there's a lot that goes into it.
Didn't you have to hand cork all these?
We do,
Yeah, so they've got a great Instagram feed and Twitter. You can see pictures of the process when they're working in the vineyards, working on the wines, and got to see your guys' pictures when you were having to cork all these. Pretty, yeah.
It's true, actually.
It's literally just like a floor of wine. So.
Yeah.
Kim's one of the more active, I think, winemakers on both Twitter and Facebook right now. Like there's a lot of content from.
What's your Instagram?
I'm Kim Kramer Wine. Yes, Kim Kramer Wine.
All right, follow it. Man, I got a rinse for
Kramer
you
Wine
guys.
is the
like that.
winery.
What's that?
Kramer Wine is the winery one.
All right.
Kramer Wine is the winery one. All right.
Yes, there are multiple ways you can engage with us online.
All right. So what are we drinking now?
This is the 2010 Estate Pinot Noir.
Okay. We were hanging out earlier. You had some really cool things to say about 2010
Yes.
Pinot.
Yes.
Love it if you would repeat them or just talk about it a little bit.
Sure. So 2010 was a really interesting harvest. I worked in Burgundy in September, October, and came back and worked our harvest here. And one of the things that I think we'll always remember about that vintage was the bird damage. It was a huge year for birds. And just to put that into perspective a little bit, we made 125 cases of this 2010 Pinot Noir Estate. We usually do 300 or 400 cases of this wine, depending on the year.
That's a lot of bird damage.
We did net some, but I think that up until that point, we'd never had a year like 2010. I mean, there were rows of vines that were just completely picked clean, and it was. It was devastating to see, but the fruit that we got, I think that we used well and had adequate time to ripen. We harvested third week of October like most everybody else here in the valley, and I think that produced really wonderful flavor. So.
Yeah, the nose on it's really nice.
So nice long cold soaks in 2010. A lot of that had to do with the fact that it was really cold during the harvest. It stayed cold. So I think our cold soaks were 10 to 14 days on almost everything in 2010. We had to, eventually we decided to kick some of our ferments off with a little bit of heat. We've got a heating coil that we'll use from time to time. And so I think that's largely responsible for the primary fruit character here. And
for those who don't know, is that a long or short period of cold soak?
For us, that's a long period.
Okay.
I think that I've heard a lot of winemakers here in the valley say 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. So almost 2 weeks is pretty long, I think.
And what does that do again?
Well, that'll give you nice extraction of primary fruit. You'll get some nice color development at that time. And in a year like 2010, where we were a bit concerned about color, it didn't really bother us to let it go for a little longer.
Cool. And I agree with Chaz. The nose jumps out of the glass and is really engaging right away. I mean, we've just carrying on with the excitement we've had about 2010. There's just great earthy aromas here, and then some good cherry fruit as well.
And along with the cherry fruit, there's like a sense of like dark fruit, like blackberries or something, right? And then just a hint of like sort of like what you get out of like a cherry pie, like this baking spice or something, right? Coming in behind it.
So the part of the vineyard where this comes from, vines were planted between 85 and 88. They're all own-rooted vines. It's a mix of a few different clones. There's mostly Pommard, but some Wadensville and Dijon clones of Pinot Noir there as well.
There's this, I think you've heard me talking about this on the show before, there's this spice running down the center of the palate, kind of like black pepper, that I've been getting in plenty of 2010s. It's good to see it here. The acidity has like this sense of life to it too, that I think is coming from these grapes that were, it was just a cooler year, so there's not nearly as much ripeness in general throughout 2010. I think that feeling of liveliness coming through on the acidity comes a little bit from that, but I really like that.
And the fruit flavors for me are like just primarily like black cherry and cranberry fruit, like ripe cranberry fruit. Just it starts off pretty ripe with the black cherries, but man, just like tightens up on the finish with like a little bit of tartness. The acidity's got a really nice feel to it, and the tannins are like way present along the sides of the cheeks. But balanced and delicious. It's good.
Yeah, they don't get too strong, and the fruit's just got a nice juicy feel on the mid palate too, which I really enjoy.
Still a young wine though, I think.
Totally.
I think this is something that you can enjoy for many years.
Wouldn't be afraid to age it based on the structure and the intensity of the fruit here. Yeah.
Well, and based on the history of the vineyard too, I really think that this wine can sell her up to a decade, probably more.
Wow. All right. And what's the price point on this one?
20.
Nice. Killer at that price.
Yeah.
Definitely worth checking out.
So, and this is in distribution?
Yes.
Okay.
The Brut is as well.
Okay, great. So you can find those at the local shops.
Yes.
Do you need another glass?
Yes.
Cut for another glass.
So we are actually shooting at the winery, and they brought fruit in today. So we are surrounded by fruit flies at the minute, and she had a couple guests.
Yeah.
So yeah, come
Thank
on.
you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, it's part of the
Yeah.
glamorous winery lifestyle.
Yes.
I guess.
So
It's
we'll
funny,
just,
you've gotten, I think, one in your Brut and
Yeah.
one here.
I'm just lucky, I guess.
I guess.
So trying to get by. Can you pour the third one?
I will.
And if you heard that, and this is your largest production Pinot Noir too,
It
right?
is. It is. Yeah. 300 to
Should
400
I just
cases.
pour this straight, or do you want to do a rinse? Because
That's just to go straight, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
Pinot to Pinot.
Yeah. You ready?
I'm ready.
Great.
I'm
All right. All right. So we're talking like that's their biggest production Pinot in a good year. They're producing between 300 and 400 cases. So right, definitely small production, family winery. Like a lot of attention has to be paid to every single batch because there's not a whole lot to work with. Right.
Right.
Something goes wrong. Like that's a huge problem. So
Yeah, in this case, 5 barrels. So every single barrel has to be excellent. Otherwise, it really cuts into our numbers.
And then beyond that, they make a few individual block selections of parts of the vineyard that they think are particularly interesting, and this is one of them.
Yes, so Cardiac Hill, this is the steepest hillside of vines that we farm. It was planted in 95, Pomard and Dijon 115 clones. I think it's 1.1 acres, and the vines are planted on 10 by 4 spacing, so not particularly close spacing on that site. And the reason is the soil. A lot of clay in the soil. There's not a lot of available nutrient to the vines, so they really, really struggle. If you look at vines the same age, they're quite a bit. The vines at Cardiac Hill have very, very thin bases to them, and they just don't put out a lot of fruit per vine. If you look at apples to apples, vines that are the same clones that are the same age. So and that's one thing that really sets it apart. But it's not just about crop level. I think that the flavors that we get off of Cardiac Hill are really unique. And to me, it's one of the most elegant wines, young, but it also cellars really well too. So big difference in the cellar is really only the aging. This wine's aged for 16 to 18 months in 25% New French oak barrels. The estate, by contrast, is just 10 months in 20% New French oak.
All right.
Quite a big change from the estate, right? As far as the nose, like a lot brighter. Like I'm getting more like in the strawberry, raspberry area, along with the cherry fruit, and less blackness, more like fresh berries here. So
yeah, the strawberries are really coming through for me, and maybe just baked just a little bit. It's not full on like strawberries in a pie, but just a touch of it. Maybe like a little bit of a tart or something. Maybe a little ginger too, yeah, like there's a little crisp, spicy.
There is. There's like something that the acidity is coming out of the glass just a little bit. Yeah. It smells awesome. And while primarily fruit driven, like another one where you smell it, you're like, oh, that's pretty much Oregon right there, right? Like it's
I'll totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, it's got the Oregon terroir like stuck on the nose. So
nice juicy feel to the fruit as it starts out on the palate. Then transitions to a little, like the tannins have a little bit of like feel of leather on them on the finish too.
yeah. I mean, that's where the savoriness is coming from. Like I'm getting like those bright fruit flavors, but there's also like a touch of something like savory, and not like rich, but like a savoriness, which is really, really nice and pairs well with the strong amount of acidity that's in this wine. And the tannins have a nice polish to them here, like where they don't do so much gripping. They're present, but they're just very, very relaxed in the way, or not like gentle in their approach. So really, really nice. Elegance and refinement you're talking about earlier, like totally get it.
Yeah, part of the reason why we age these longer is to refine those tannins, because when you're sourcing from such a specific area and a limited area, those tannins can be a little bit overwhelming when the wine's younger. So I think that extended barrel aging really does help resolve those.
Right, and yeah, it did. I agree. Delicious. What does this one come in at for price?
This one's $40.
Okay.
And tasting room exclusive. So.
Okay. Yeah. And totally reasonable when you're talking about single vineyard Pinot, right? From like single block, some of the best stuff in like an entire vineyard. Totally
Hand
reasonable.
harvested. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of flavors do you get out of it that you enjoy, or
Well,
if you don't mind talking about it?
No, well, as far as like the types of fruit, I leave that to other people to talk about. For me, Cardiac Hill is more of a personality,
All right.
and so for me, I look at Cardiac Hill as being some of our most elegant and refined Pinot Noirs, in contrast to some other areas that maybe have a more wild character or a more structured character. And so for me, this is kind of if you're looking at elegance, especially close to release, it would be Cardiac.
Cool. And to me, like the more as I get through more sips, like I'm definitely getting a little bit of that like leathery, earthy component hanging on to the finish there. And some people I talk to, I know, like really like a little more of that in their Pinot Noir, or I hear people talk about it. Yeah, from time to time, they really like that earthy aftertaste. I think this definitely delivers that.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
Yeah, like the juicy fruit too. That's just solid.
Yeah.
Wine number 4.
Yes.
It's going to be the Müller-Thurgau. Before we get on to that, I'm curious. You were talking about how the the different blocks kind of have their own personality. At what point in your life did you really experience that? Like you've probably been hearing it for longer than it really connected for you, or maybe not, but like do you remember when you're like, oh, I totally get what they're talking about?
I do. I mean, there's multiple experiences where I've had that, but the first one was tasting a Pinot that my parents made from Heritage Block, which is our oldest vines on the property, planted in 1984, all unrooted, all pommard. And people talk about a clarity of flavor that you get with older vine Pinot. And I didn't get it until, I think it was the 03 vintage of Heritage, where I very clearly got rose and cherry and nutmeg and black pepper, and it was so easy to pick out in the wine, in contrast to so many other wines that I'd had up until that point. And that was really the first time. And it was reinforced this harvest, actually, when we had a kid. He was like 17 or 18 picking the grapes, and he was asking me, why we had to separate the Pinot into these different bins. And I told him to taste the fruit, and he was like, yeah, they do taste totally different. And these are rows that you could like throw a rock and hit the sights from one to the other. So that was really gratifying for me to have somebody so young be able to taste that in the fruit.
Wow.
Awesome. And exciting for you to carry that into the wine.
Yes, yes, exactly.
So that's a rinse. So
yeah. So the last wine is
knock it back.
Is Müller-Thurgau, a grape you don't see grown a lot of in Oregon. Is this also 2010?
Yes. Yeah.
You don't see a whole lot of it in Oregon. It's also from Germany, so there's like kind of that influence. You can see it's got that the Riesling shape, the bottle shape I associate with Riesling a lot, but it's definitely its own grape. What do you like about Müller-Thurgau?
Well, Müller-Thurgau is our largest production white wine. On the growing side, what I really like about it is that it's pretty easy to grow, especially compared to grapes like Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Pinot Gris. It crops much heavier. There have been vintages where I was worried that the vines were going to collapse under the weight of that fruit. We typically get, we'll get 4 to 6 tons an acre off of those vines. So for us, that's quite a bit of fruit. Pretty disease resistant, and so even in vintages like 2010 where you saw a fair amount of botrytis, there really wasn't a lot going on in the Müller-Thurgau, so I think it's pretty tough. I'm surprised actually that it's not more widely grown because it seems like a good fit for Oregon, not just because it grows well from a health standpoint, but from a flavor standpoint. I think that we get really nice flavors in this grape in this area. The other thing that I really like about it is that it's incredibly approachable. I think that when we pour it here in the tasting room, it hits a sweet spot for so many different people. Just really nice, easy fruit. It's got good acidity, but not super high acid. The perception of dryness isn't as high as what we see with some other whites. So it's really something that everybody likes. And if somebody's looking for a gift, this is always what I recommend.
Cool.
And we sparkle it as well. So.
What made you guys want to do Müller-Thurgau in the first place? Being as it's such not a lot of people make it, right? Like,
right.
Was it an experiment by the family, like the parents, like, let's try this out, or was it like we?
Do you know the answer to that? I'm gonna have to ask them. I know that they planted it here starting in 90.
Early 90s.
Or yeah, in the early 90s, because we had Riesling at the same time, and the Riesling wasn't moving, which I don't get because I taste those Rieslings from the early 90s and they're incredible. But the Riesling wasn't moving, and they planted a little bit of Müller-Thurgau, and it just soared. People really responded to it, and so that's why. So after planting a few vines, they eventually grew to the 3 acres that we have now, and grafted over our original Riesling vines to Müller-Thurgau too.
Crazy.
So, I'm gonna have to ask my folks how they discovered it. For me, I've never asked that question because it's just kind of always been there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll have to find out how they.
But it's so rare, right? Like,
yeah. There's only, at least according to the last harvest report that was done in 2010, there's just over 60 acres grown in the whole state. So, there's really not that much of it. And again, I don't get it because I think it's a beautiful wine and it's easy to grow. So.
The nose on this is just great. So she says that they've got some Muscat vines like interspersed amongst the Muller, and I was like, oh, that accounts for all these crazy aromatics. And then she told me that there's no Muscat in the 2010 Muller at all. So this is all directly, from that one variety, and yeah, just like great like pear fruits and like floral notes coming out on the nose here. Really kind of jumps out of the glass.
White pears, like pineapples and peaches.
Yeah.
What speak to me on the same way? Were you going to say something?
Well, Müller-Thurgau is inherently muscatty anyway, so I think that for us it made sense we've got 60 or so vines of muscat planted on the property, so it made sense to us to combine those to enhance the aroma of the wines. But yeah, in 2010 it all mildewed away. It was I'm really happy with how aromatic this vintage is.
It turned out really good, yeah. And so the reason we're doing last is this has just a little touch, like a touch of RS to it, and that I think balances well with the fruit here and with the strong amount of acidity that this thing carries. Like a lot of acidity, but it starts out like sort of tropically to me. That acidity, the sweetness comes in, the sweetness comes in, and then the acidity comes in, just washes it all out, carries it on the fruit flavors on for a considerable amount of time. Really nice. So it's.
And I think
really
combined with that RS to balance the acidity like really, it's like full. It's got kind of like a wider texture to it. It's not like this like laser sharp acidity I've experienced. It's not like you squeeze the fresh lime in your mouth.
That's a good point.
It's got a little more breadth to it. It kind of spreads out across the back of the tongue and dries more slowly. But I think that makes it more approachable, where I think some people are easily turned off by wines that are too acidic. This doesn't really have that feel to it so much. I think that the nice roundness up front, the aromatics, on the nose, and kind of those similar things on the palate make it pretty approachable.
Totally. And then the price on this is
$10 a bottle,
which I think is a fantastic deal.
and this one's also in distribution. So
Yeah.
Which you can pick up. Yeah. So awesome.
Yeah. So easy to find, and retail shops in Oregon, and since it's in distribution, pretty much any wine shop in Oregon can order it, right? Just give it who distributes it.
General.
Okay, so give them a call, and you can get the wine get the wine sent to your favorite shop. Pick it up right there.
Or if you want to come out and taste the rest of the single vineyard stuff, come out here and check it out.
Yes.
Because this isn't the only one you have. What other ones do you have?
So we have 3 single block Pinots all together, and we're going to be introducing in December. We're going to be introducing a Pinot only flight where you can taste all 3 blocks and the estate Pinot Noir, and it's a nice kind of snapshot of Pinot Noir from our vineyard. So.
Cool. And a question that I had, we didn't get to in the middle of the show, so we're going to get to it now. Talking about being a new winemaker at the family estate, everyone kind of brings in their own stamp, and everybody also has like a bunch of knowledge and material to work with when they start. So I'm curious what you think, and have you talked about for a bit, like what stuff are you most excited about that you're bringing brand new to Kramer Vineyards, and what stuff are you taking from what you learned from your parents that you're most excited about carrying on?
Okay, well, the first part of the question is I'm really excited that they let me bring in the traditional sparkling wine. That was the first big project that I presented to them, and they said, yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. And so that was really, really fun. And then after I went and worked in Burgundy in 2010, and I wanted to change some things about our Pinot Noir program, I really think that brought just more of the pureness of the fruit out because I was managing the fermentations in a more healthy way. So I'm just really excited that they trusted me enough to let me make those big decisions. But really, I'm building on the work that they've done for almost 30 years now, and I think selecting the property here, establishing the vineyard, and I think they were really smart about the varieties that they chose to plant and the clones that they chose to plant, and then getting a little bit experimental with vine density. I think all of that in the vineyard, I'm really in that way just building on the work that they started in the early 80s. So
great,
that's awesome.
Well, this was a fun show. I hope you all enjoyed it as well. And like always, we'll wrap up with a question of the day. What would you like to know from the viewers?
Question of the day: what is your favorite kombucha? I'm a kombucha fiend and always looking for new fermented teas to experiment with. My favorite is Dr. Brew lemongrass ginger. I'm asking because I don't remember the name, but I know what it is.
Townsend's. We were just looking that up online.
Yes. In the stubby bottle. Love it. So, what's your favorite kombucha?
Nice. Mine is the GTs with anything with the chia seeds in it. Okay. I like the normal stuff, like the gingerade one is really good, but man, once you start to put the chia seeds in it,
Are they
love
crunchy?
it. They're like
not terribly.
It's like drinking fruit. It's weird. It's I really can't just. It's like you just have to drink it.
And he got me into that. I think there's a little bit of sugar in them too, because they're pretty friendly to drink. But,
totally, yeah.
But I like the chia ones too. He got me into that. I also noticed while I was looking at the bottle, I'd be totally remiss if I didn't mention this. It looks like your vineyards here are all live certified and salmon safe.
Yes.
So that's awesome that you make the effort both to participate in sustainable practices and to get certified. You know, so you can put that on the bottle, right? If you see these on shelves, you can see that, you know, that they're making efforts to farm sustainably and take care of the land. It's good stuff. So.
Well, as a second generation winery, it's important for us to keep being able to farm our site. So we would be doing it even if they didn't have the certification.
Well, thanks for inviting us out.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. See you guys next time.